If you're here, please settle down, enjoy yourselves, and look forward to an amazing event. I'm really, really excited about it, and we got loads of wonderful people here. So without further ado, let me introduce myself. My name is Dr. Sarah Lewis, and I am the Director of Grow, Transform, Belong and Penal Reform Solutions. And my intention is to globally change culture across the criminal justice system. And on my birthday in 2016, I started Penal Reform Solutions, so 25th of September. And every year on that day, I kind of review whether it brings me joy and whether it's worth its while, really. And I can honestly say that I've never got to a year where I felt that with 100% certainty that I was kind of doing the right thing. And then I realized why that was. And I think that was because I was looking at false hope. So false hope is defined as the belief that something will happen despite the strong evidence that it won't. And the way in which it's described within a systems point of view is the fact that there's lots of promises and maybe not too much action. And that can lead to people burning out, that can lead to a loss of trust, and essentially people tapping out. And I would honestly say that over the 9 years of working in this space and the 20 years working within criminal justice, I have really wanted to tap out quite a lot. And I'm pretty sure I'm not alone in that. But then I kind of thought, maybe I got the wrong focus. Maybe I'm thinking from a systems point of view rather than a people point of view. Because I kind of thought that the system might be logical. You know, we do some wonderful work, like all of us on the screen have done along the way. We do some wonderful work, and logically that work is going to be picked up. It's going to be applied. We're going to learn. We're going to be able to shift culture, and that is going to be change is going to be possible. Yeah. But I kind of think maybe we need to think more, we need to definitely appreciate systems. But I think what we do need to know is that systems are made up of people. And so Justice 2.0 is all about focusing on people. People that want to make a difference, people that want to change culture across the criminal justice system to make it more humane, to make it more effective, to make it more compassionate. And why do we want to do that? And I kind of think when you look at the literature, when you look at what we found from doing our culture work, if you invest in culture, it increases well-being, it reduces harm, so it reduces suicides, self-harm, death on a more broader scale. But what it also does, which is the heart of Justice 2.0, is it increases belonging. And I think that is the key. I think it's really important that whatever we do within criminal justice, we need to think about how we can collectively feel that we are enabling an environment where people feel that they belong. Because sadly, the statistics tell us that just as a general population, 1 in 3 of us will experience severe loneliness. And that really resonates with me working in prisons. I kind of think, prisons can be really lonely places, not only for the people that we serve, but also for the staff and certainly for the leaders. And what we also know is that when loneliness is high, that can increase our anxiety by 300%. And I kind of think over the last kind of decade, the combination of anxiety and loneliness and this real obsession with risk really does fuel a kind of sense of fear. And I fear greatly that if we continue going the way we were going to go, we're going to be a system that is chronically lonely. And I'm not having it. I'm not having it. I kind of think there's more that we can do. And my pledge is for us to start and lead this campaign, not only co-define it, which is what we're doing today, but it's about co-creating it and it's about co-owning it, because I don't think we can do it on our own. And I think when we do it on our own, we feel a sense of loneliness, and that's only going to have an impact on our level of burnout and how long we can do it for. Yeah. So a lot of people say to me, you need to slow down. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And I think absolutely is a marathon, but it's also about collective effort. And that's what Justice 2.0 is for me. And so how are we doing that? So this week, we're going to present to the government our proposal around rolling out a national culture change programme in England and Wales. So that's really exciting, but terrifying. We've also created 7 online courses, which is called the Growth Series. And that's all about giving people the resources to be able to build good relationships, help with their trauma, give them skills in reflection, but also give them the tools to be cultural change agents. So a really accessible course that we really hope to launch in the next month, because I think there's something about us making the assumption that people are able to actually deliver culture change. And I think people are doing the best with the resources they have, but I think they might need some support in that. And so it is an international program. We have some incredible speakers on it, and it's something that we hope will ignite passion and increase hope, and also increase the sense of collective impact and belonging, which we really, really wish for. The other part of Justice 2.0 is the Growth Alliance. So that is anyone, and I do mean anyone is welcome to our party, essentially. And you're automatically a member if you choose to be, if you believe that the criminal justice system needs greater trust, if you believe that our knowledge needs to not just come from academia, but needs to come from our people who have lived and breathed prison, probation, approved premises, whether that's professionals or whether that's personal experience. And that's people that have been impacted by the system as well, people that have been victims of the system, as well as victims of crime. And also, if you believe that there's a need to show greater compassion in our work and greater empathy, and for us to recognise and see good in people. And I think that's really important, that it's about celebrating good. It's about celebrating the things that are working and explaining, I guess, to the public why those things work, and sharing stories in the meantime. And then the last bit of Justice 2.0 is that we promise to be courageous. And I think that comes with a bit of vulnerability, right? That comes with a little bit of fear that we have to stand up for what we believe. We have to challenge the status quo and almost get to a stage where the Justice 1.0, the last software of justice, is not acceptable and antisocial and not something that we're really going to tolerate anymore. So, how things could just be very last season. Calling people offenders is really last season. We can call people by different names that doesn't give them labels, that doesn't increase that risk of taking on an identity. Our IPP crisis that we've got here, again, is very last season. We need to do something about that. We need to work and upgrade a system so that we're able to support people to reintegrate and give them proportional and fair conditions to do that. Yeah. So for me, there's something about providing a solution. In the news last week, we heard that there's been 10% increase in deaths in our prisons last year in 2024, and a 14% in staff assaults. Yeah, so things are not looking great, but I think for me, there's something about, let's talk about the solutions. Let's get together. Let's make an impact together. And if I could tell you anything and advise you in any way, find a tribe, find a group of people that inspire you and refuel you and help you, and have conversations. What does Justice 2.0 look like to you? What does that upgrade look like? What is Justice 1.0 to you? And it's about sharing that, whether that's using the hashtag, whether that's doing videos, whether that's contacting us at Grow, Transform, Belong. And I think, I found my tribe, and a lot of them are on the screen, which is a privilege. But we also have a team of people that are just incredibly passionate. And I think once we found our tribe, I think it's then about saying, right, let's come together, let's transform things, let's do something about it. There's one thing promising change, let's be the action, because sometimes we lose that, and step out of our echo chambers. I'm very used to being in the same room, saying the same thing. And I think this is why we're doing our live events, so that we are exposing people to different conversations and meeting new people. And it's okay if you disagree, let's have a conversation. That's what it's all about. And we have an army of people that are really keen to have that conversation, so that we achieve what we want, which essentially is to serve the public. And I mean that kind of globally, to serve our communities and to create a more humane and effective system. Yeah. So before I hand over to our lovely speakers for this launch, I'm just going to end with a quote that I always say, which will probably one day, I was going to say be on my tombstone, but it's not, because I'm going to get cremated. But it would be certainly in my last moments, which is by Margaret Mead. And she says, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed individuals can change the world, because that is what happens. That's how it works. So I present you my thoughtful, committed group of people that are on the screen today. And what we're going to do is we're just going to talk to them about what does Justice 2.0 mean to them. If you want to make comments, then please do. Through LinkedIn, through YouTube, through Instagram, and we will try and integrate some of your comments along the way. So that's my job to do that. Also to let you know that this is obviously a recording, so you'll be able to view this after the event as well. So welcome to everyone. Thanks for all the comments so far. Inundated. Thank you. It's lovely to see you all. And people are already starting to make comments. So thank you so much for that. But without further ado, I'm going to introduce Andrea and William, who are going to tell us a little bit more about themselves and what Justice 2.0 means to them. So over to you, Andrea.
Thanks, Sarah. So my name is Andrea Cody. I'm the head of policy and service user involvement at NACRO, and I'm really delighted to be here today with my colleague William. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm William Moore, Internal Engagement Officer for NACRO.
And one of the things that really chimes with us about Justice 2.0 is the vision it sets out around magnifying the voices of those who've been through the system to drive culture change. And so we wanted to talk to you today about how NACRO works alongside people with lived experience in our policy and campaigning work. But for anyone who might not know NACRO, we're a social justice charity that works across England and Wales. We support about 28,000 people every year, and we work across each part of the criminal justice system. We've been around for almost 60 years now, and throughout that time, we've been campaigning and advocating for change that would mean that our systems work better for the people that they should serve and the people that we support. So a few years ago, we created a group called the NACRO Justice Exchange, which is a network of people who've been in contact with the system and received support from NACRO with their resettlement journey and want to use their experiences to give back to improve the system for those left behind. We've campaigned on various issues, and members of the Justice Exchange have met decision makers from the Ministry of Justice, Prisons and Probation, Department for Work and Pension, and various politicians. I really see NACRO's role as one of leveraging our name and the relationships that we have as a service delivery organisation to ensure that people with lived experience have a genuine seat at the table with the people that can change things. So without further ado, I will hand over to William.
Hi, as I said, my name's William Morey. I just want to give a brief kind of history of myself, really. I've been involved with the system since I was 7. I had my first prison sentence when I was 13, and I got sentenced to life imprisonment when I was 23. So I've been involved with the system now for over 50 years altogether. And the one thing I'd like to mention straight away is the one thing that I've never got out of the system is any kind of meaningful intervention. All the way through my system, I had nothing. No one helped me when I was a kid. No one helped me through nothing. And the only kind of sensible help I got was when I went to a prison called Grendon Underwood, which is a therapeutic prison. I spent 3.5 years there, and it totally utterly changed my life around. Now, the reason I bring that up is I want to talk about kind of positive outcomes, and this is what the launch of Justice 2.0 is about. Now, at NACRO, we do group work, so we do group work all over Hertfordshire. We do it for groups of between 10 to 15 men, and basically what we do is we sit around a table and we talk. We give people a voice. We give people the chance to actually speak about the things that are really affecting them, through their, whether it be drug issues, whether it be housing issues, all these different things we cover at NACRO. Now, most of these people have had some kind of trauma in their life, and I would say most of them were victims themselves before they even created victims. Now, I put in for my vetting not long ago, and I've just been refused my vetting. So after 3.5 years of working with groups of men and feeling I was doing really well at that, and feeling the men were actually getting something out of it, I've now been told I can't do that work. I've now been told I cannot go to a probation office. I've now been told I cannot do all these things I've been doing for NACRO, the things that make me become a person, the things that make me change, the things that give me atonement. I'm so passionate about this work, and I feel so disheartened to have this kind of refusal, because it feels like they're saying to me there's no such thing as rehabilitation for certain offenders. And I don't think that's right. I think that every single person who's in the system, has been in the system, needs to be given the right and needs to be given the chance to change their lives around. And I look at the system now, and it's just such a complete and utter mess that it's not helping anybody. So there's lots of things need changing, and there's lots of things. I'm very aware of what Sarah said, that we can't do things overnight, which is what I want. I want things to change now. We all do, but this is just not going to happen, And one of the things I'm really aware of is all the knowledge in this kind of industry all seems to be at the bottom. It seems to be amongst us, amongst the people we're speaking to now, and we need to get this knowledge into the system, and that's where I feel that this Justice 02 can help. We can help by giving service users a voice and speaking into the right ears. It's all right me talking, but I've got to have the right ears to speak into. I don't want to take up too much of more of your time, but I just think that people with youth experiences need to be recognised for what they do, because it is. Sometimes it's trauma. I go around and give my life story to people, and believe you me, when I give my life story, it takes something out of me. It's something that I'm willing to give, and I just want to keep on doing that. I've got a skill set which I think a lot of people haven't got, because of the amount of experiences I've had through the prison system, and I think that I want to use that, and I just cannot understand a system that would not grab that with both hands, instead of just pushing me away into the background and saying you are no good no more. We need to give people the chance to actually become themselves. We have to give people the chance to talk and express themselves and find out what's wrong with their lives and how to make it better. So I'm not going to go on no more, but we just need to keep fighting that unconscious bias and keep on working together. And I'm so proud to be part of this launch, and I'm so proud to be part of the new gang. Sarah, I'll be part of your gang any day. So thank you. And I don't know who's next, but I'm going to hand you over to whoever that is. So
wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, both of you. I think vetting is such a significant issue, isn't it? Because in some senses, it's that grip. It's that kind of, you kind of do your sentence and you do your time, and you kind of come out and think, do you know what? Now I've got that freedom, and that freedom to give back is so important. And I think, I really hope that you are utterly inspired by Ridian talking as well a bit later on, but know that there is a global trend of lived experience coming forward. And I think having that collective network where you can support each other and we can support you as well, I think is really, really important. But as the comments have said, lovely to see you here, Nina. Sorry to hear that, William. Vetting urgently needs an overhaul. Another person said you're rehabilitated up to the point of being vetted. I think some really interesting points and questions here. Such an important point, William, says Kerry. The costs of sharing trauma stories, and I think we really underestimate that, and that's why we're working with William and with NACRO to bring about some collective standards around how do we best support people to have their voice. So thank you so much to both of you, and for the work that you do. We value your friendship and we value your partnership. Okay, I'm going to hand over to someone who is also a really dear friend of mine. I don't know why I'm laughing. He's such a dear friend of mine, and I absolutely love him dearly. So Simon, would you like to introduce yourselves and talk to us a little bit about what Justice 2.0 means to you?
Yeah, certainly, Sarah. It's not the first time that people laugh at me when they hear my name or even hear me talk. So anyway, thanks for this opportunity. Fascinating, frustrating what I was hearing from William. At times. I've worked in the probation service for over 40 years. I was a volunteer. I just want to say that the rationale why I wanted to join it, and it hasn't actually changed. I do believe that people can change, that people do want to change. When I stop believing that, that's when I need to leave. I don't want to be one of those cynical individuals that I used to see when I first went into some offices. if I'm like that, I need to move on. I still believe in what can happen, and it is helping people to realize their potential. And within that, and you've made so many valid points, that so often we don't ask the individual what their needs are. Well, what is it that you need? We tend to think, right, okay, one approach fits all. It doesn't. We are individuals. Let's focus on that. Let's go and ask. I mean, I had the privilege last year to work with Cam, and Cam came along to a lot of our development days, and really trying to get across to the staff to say, well, have you engaged with the individuals? Have you asked them what their needs are? Let's hear from them, because we're hoping, want to help people. So I work in approved premises, as I said, and some people won't know what those are. They have been known in the past as hostels. It's a place where when someone will serve a sentence, and if at the time they're assessed and they're deemed at a certain level of risk, then they have to come to an approved premises for a period of time. There are various controls, but one of the things we're really wanting to focus on more and more since I've been in approved premises is the rehabilitation side. If we work alongside, if we build relationships, that's only going to help, isn't it? It's just so important. So I've been working with staff to understand what we mean by rehabilitation. And again, Cam and Justine, who's been part of this, has really helped with understanding the value of conversations. It's not always that it's a structured program. Having those conversations with individuals can help plant seeds, can help get people to see, oh, actually, I may want to see things differently. And also it builds people's confidence. So what do I see from all this and the key messages? And I've already touched on some of it. It is that importance of building and maintaining relationships, whether that's with individuals that I work with, whether that's with colleagues, whether it's that with people within this virtual room today. It's about working together, and you have to put effort into build and maintain those relationships. And at times find those common goals. We may have different views to a certain extent, but see the things that we have in common so we can then work together. When I started it, I wanted to understand why people did things, and I haven't lost that. And it's having that curiosity. If we have a better understanding, then actually we can work together, can't we? Very much about investing in people, the individuals I work with, but also with staff. It's having that time to have those conversations with staff. With training, we've tended to go very much around e-learning. Yeah, that's an approach, but actually let's look at different ways. Let's meet in person. I did some training yesterday with staff, and it was knocked down to me, but they valued the opportunity to be in the same room and to reflect and look at their own practices, listen to other people, how they deal with things, and learn from that. So, we've got to spend time to upskill staff. And also that everyone has a voice. People should have a voice. Let's make sure that we empower that, so we do listen. We might not always agree with everything, but yeah, there's such a value in that. So those are the key things I'd want to say.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Simon. And we have just thoroughly enjoyed our time working in approved premises, but also not only working with the staff on the ground, but also working with your leaders and your managers, and certainly seeing their ambitions and their real desires to build a better culture, and also some of those barriers that kind of get in the way. But it is a privilege to know you, Simon, and I think your support has seriously, someone talked about refueling. I think it was, fill our batteries. Our lovely Tammy Burrows, who's going to be an advisor to Justice 2.0, but she said, a positive tribe refills batteries, and Simon is certainly a member of our tribe, and he's definitely someone that refills our batteries when they get a bit low sometimes. So thank you, Simon. Okay, we're now going to try some tech magic, and we're going to try and get Gethin Jones on the screen. So Gethin, again, started in this kind of space about 10 years ago when I did as well. And yeah, we connected then, and we've connected over the last decade. And Gethin is a real friend of mine. We sometimes refer to each other as different Avengers, and he would be Rocket because he's slightly yeah, he's kind of dinky and loads of power in him, I guess, in terms of his passions. But Gethin is an inspiration to so many people, and here's just a couple of words from him. Yeah, he sadly couldn't.
Hi everybody, this is Gethin Jones from Unlocking Potential, and I am both the founder, CEO, director, whatever you want to call me, but what I am actually is just a human being that's trying his very best to try to help create a justice system that's fit for purpose and fairest for all. Unlocking Potential has been around for a little while now, and we deliver lots of different stuff. We deliver justice consultancy, we also deliver training, and we also create bespoke personal development and change programs for people trapped within the system. But that's not why I'm talking to you today. I'm talking to you today because I am supporting Dr. Sarah Lewis in the launch of Justice 2.0. I've been very, very fortunate to know Sarah Lewis for the past 8 years. And over that time, we have got to know each other very well. And what we've also got to know is we have the same values and the same beliefs in what it is that we may need to do together to help shift and change the system so it really is fit for purpose and fairest for all. And what we mean by that is that it supports the people that work within it, the people that live within it, and the communities it serves. No one single person or individual has the power to be able to change the system in what it needs to be today. But what we can do is collectively start to work together to create a campaign and a movement to support the change that we really need to see. Unlocking Potential is on that journey of creating that campaign and being able to help on this journey, as is Sarah Lewis and her team with the launch of Justice 2.0. What we need today is we need more organisations, more people to sign up to this campaign so we can all be individual streams that are sharing the same message out to the general public. These streams then become rivers. Rivers become stronger, and a river then becomes an ocean, and the ocean is the power that creates the change that we all really, really need. Not one single person or one single organisation can do this. The only way that we can do this is by doing it together. And I am signing my allegiance to Sarah Lewis and everybody else that is in this for the long haul. Justice 2.0, and also to create the justice system that we know we really need to serve and support the country we live within. Power to the people. Always want to say that. Over and out. Bye for now.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, he's got so much energy. He's just such a wonderful person. And yeah, we're really lucky to have him on board with Justice 2.0. But wonderful. Thank you, Gethin. Even though you aren't here, lots of love to you. And also thank you for the comments that are kind of coming through. So John Reed's talking about his book. Congratulations on that. I know that's just an absolute kind of moment in time for you that's really important. Daniel, thank you for your comment about trust, and really echoing what Simon said in terms of we need to earn trust and find out their personal stories. Lived experience people can give identification, so it breaks barriers. So that real need to earn trust. So it's one of the main parts of our manifesto of Justice 2.0. So thank you so much for your support there, Daniel. Okay, we're going to hand over to Heather now. So Heather, over to you. And yeah, I really look forward to hearing what you would like to see in Justice 2.0. So over to Heather.
Thank you, Sarah. And I should thank Gethin, really, although I wish I hadn't followed him now. I mean, who can follow that? The pocket rocket, really. But yeah, so I'm Heather Whitehead, and I feel really honoured and privileged to have been asked to join the conversation today about Justice 2.0 with some really esteemed individuals on this call. So I'm having a little bit of imposter syndrome. But yeah, so thank you, Sarah, for asking me to do this. And I'll start by telling you a little bit about me, and then one of the areas that I think we really need to focus on to kind of create that reform across the system that we need. So yeah, I have worked in prisons for over 20 years until fairly recently, less than a year ago, actually. So I joined the prison service many years ago as a psychologist initially. and driven by a real sense of purpose around supporting people to change. And I very quickly realised, kind of within 5 years or so, that the work that I was really trying to do back in those days was being undermined at every turn by the culture of the service at the time. And I literally had a decision to make. Do I kind of, put up or shut up kind of thing? So I chose to do a cross-hierarchical move and become a prison governor, and became an operational manager and a prison governor, and have governed a couple of prisons, and left the prison service a couple of years ago as prison group director for youth custody. So one of my passions is around working with children in custody and trying to develop a system that is child appropriate and child first. I then went to Park, so I've worked in private and public sector prisons for a year before becoming a justice consultant and leadership development coach and trainer. So that's what I do now. So whilst there was loads of things I could have spoke about based on my experience and my take on what I think needs to be upgraded about the system, not least investment in the buildings and infrastructure, antiquated policies. I could have focused 10 minutes just talking about what we need to do to make things fairer and more decent and more constructive for children. But based on Sarah's introduction and the focus of Justice 2.0 and that real kind of people focus, I've chosen to talk about an area that I think cuts across all parts of the prison system and other elements of the justice system, actually, and focus on people and how particularly the prison service and the prison system can attract, recruit, train, develop, and retain the right people in the system. Because as Sarah said at the beginning, culture drives how systems function, but people are that bridge between strategy and execution. And whilst system change requires the framework to be upgraded in order to be able to truly enable people to deliver the scale of change that they want to, we have all, and I certainly have in my career, we have met some amazing people who are able to navigate that change and are able to lead change either on a one-to-one individual relational level or across part of the organisation, in spite of a system that doesn't particularly enable them. So people are really the change agent here, and it's people that change people. So I wanted to spend some time talking about the people within the prison system, primarily the people that are working within that system, who of course make up quite a high number. So I want to start really, I want to talk about recruitment, professionalisation and leadership. And when I first thought about how I'd do this, I wrote it in that order chronologically. But I want to start at the end really, because for me, the leadership of service at the moment is having a bit of an identity crisis. So having been a leader in this system, I know that senior leaders across HMPPS want to promote a culture of rehabilitation. I know that it is part of the purpose and mission of the prison system. However, sometimes the decisions that are made, the policies that are in place don't quite support that, and it creates a dissonance between what is said and what the reality feels like. And that can be extremely challenging for leaders within that system. And also for the people that it serves, both communities and also for those that are living in that system. So I just want to make a few points about really practical things that I think would start to make a difference. Firstly, and this is a cultural thing, there are some amazing prison officers and prison staff working across the prisons in England and Wales. But the service needs to stop promoting really, really good prison officers. And that's not because prison officers don't make great leaders, but actually it's a completely different skill set. And I think there's something that right from the get-go needs to be identified around what are those leadership skills and what are those approaches that fit with those beliefs and that vision, and then nurturing the individuals who show that talent, who are not necessarily always going to be the really, really great prison officers, and also don't necessarily always have to have quite a lot of time in, working on the units and in all the different roles that a prison officer does. prison governing has got to be, I think, one of the only professions that doesn't have any kind of formal accreditation or leadership qualification attached to it. And that does two things. One, it undermines the profession in and of itself. And actually, it's one of the most challenging roles that I've ever done in my career. And it takes a very, very unique skill set to be able to excel in those roles. But equally, you know, it undermines that to others, and it doesn't give people the best opportunity to lead to their full capacity. So there absolutely needs to be a focus on how do we develop good leaders all the way through from first line managers to senior leaders across the whole organisation, governor and senior to that. And what is the kind of consistent high standards and expectations expected? And then how can a professionalisation be attached to that so that that qualification becomes respected by other disciplines and allows people to move in and out of the service, creating that greater diversity? One of the things that is challenging about the current processes and the system within the service is that often prison governors are recruited internally. And of course, there is sector specific knowledge that people need to gain. But I, for one, did a fast track program back in 2008. I was a psychologist and, you know, I was chewed up, went on some training and spat out as a prison governor. And actually, most of those things you can learn if you've got the right skill set and the right experience and the right approach and attitude. So I think there's something about having greater diversity at that level, and also having that growth mindset about, you know, how do we make sure that we continue to invest in our people? The second bit about leadership is that leading in prisons, and I speak from personal experience, is one of the most challenging things you can do. And maintaining well-being and resilience of those senior leaders is absolutely essential. And again, it has to be one of the only social care type professions where supervision and reflective practice isn't essential for those individuals. Not only will that make better leaders, but that will also maintain that resilience, keep people's energy high, keep their cup filled, help them focus on why they're doing what they're doing when things are challenging, and maintain their well-being. So the second thing I wanted to mention was around recruitment and professionalisation. So anyone who's been around prisons for a while knows that whilst recruitment has improved in terms of getting people into the service, retention remains a challenge, and the level of experience across prisons is significantly reduced over the last few years. And that is causing quite a few challenges. Having led in the youth custody sector, I've seen some of the issues around recruitment firsthand. There is a real balance to be struck around advertising campaigns that show the vision of what you want to achieve versus the reality. And I think there is still some work to be done around making sure that what is in those advertising campaigns reflects what life really is like without stifling that ambition. So for me, we need to start to embed safer recruitment principles with really rigorous interview processes, making sure that the individuals that are attracted are sufficiently resilient, looking at the values that they hold. It's really important to have integrity, honesty, authenticity, compassion, kindness, a belief in rehabilitation. And I don't believe that those things are sufficiently tested at the moment. And then to continue with those individuals through their professional journey in the service. So with clearly mapped out career development pathways, a clear curriculum of continuous professional development underpinned by really great reflective practice and feedback loops that creates a more trusting, psychologically safe culture that is much less reactive to crisis and much more about investing in their people, helping them learn from their experiences, learning from one another in a less hierarchical, autonomous type of leadership style, so that the diversity of those people that join the organisation can really become and build on those strengths. So in summary, I feel the way that staff are attracted to, trained, supported, developed, and into leadership roles, and then supported within those leadership roles, is an area that really needs really specific focus, because it is the people that are in the organization that will change it. And although these things sounds really, really practical and maybe very small in terms of transforming a whole system, I wanted to end by just sharing a quote from Albert Einstein, which is, "I wish to do something great and wonderful, but I must start by doing the things like they were great, the little things like they were great and wonderful." So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Heather. That was just, really inspiring. And I was absolutely with you on pretty much every point that you raised regarding investing in training and just creating that kind of really robust leadership identity, isn't it? That legitimacy. I think staff are doing the best with the resources they have. But when you think about no face-to-face interviews when people come and be prison officers, when you think about no training when you go from a prison officer to a custodial manager, for example, you can really see why this causes us a lot of problems. And Dan Reynolds, thanks for your comment around that, the importance of experience you talk about, but also the importance of pairing that with training to really facilitate that transition. And sink or swim approach, that's very Justice 1.0, classic example where you get chucked into a situation, and a lot of the time I hear staff say, well, it's sink or swim, isn't it? And I kind of think there's collateral damage to that, isn't there, potentially? And if someone sinks, what that does to them in terms of their confidence, I think we don't think about enough. I don't think. We had some other really good comments. Thank you. On LinkedIn. So good governors are moved on far too quickly, and bad ones seem to be there for ages. So again, how we manage performance at that kind of governor level, how we support governors, and that real need for reflective practice. I'm privileged to do growth supervision with a number of governing governors and see firsthand some of the real challenges they face. But that time to reflect, like you say, time to reflect and get feedback is so important. And then Carrie Ann, a lovely comment that talks a lot about what you were talking about, Heather, in terms of diversity, extending the diversity of staff to support people with lived experience to work in all areas of the criminal justice system. So we talked about this last week, that it's almost like it hits, people hit a ceiling sometimes, but we need it at a strategic level as well. We need that input from our lived experience kind of community at all levels. So how we can do that in an effective and meaningful and genuine way, I think is really, really important. Again, lovely contributions from our Stuart. Stuart leads to trust leads to empowerment together with opportunities. You have purpose, then change happens. So the importance of us finding our purpose, like Simon talked about, in terms of having that drive, internal drive to make a difference and support people in their change process, really. So thank you so much, Heather, for that. I'm now going to pass over to our lovely Becky, and I'm really excited to hear what you have to say in terms of what you see Justice 2.0 to be. And so over to you, Becky.
Hi, and thank you for inviting me to be part of this with so many great speakers. It's great to be part of the launch, and Justice 2.0 has really sort of chimed with me when you introduced me to it. So I'm Becky White. I'm a criminal justice researcher and consultant, and my work focuses on those impacted by crime and harm, recognising that we're not all, we're very rarely one thing or the other, the harmed or the harmer. I'm currently writing up my PhD, which looks at victim participation in the proceedings at the International Criminal Court, and I also sit on the Criminal Procedure Rules Committee. So after roles in the third sector and public sector, I've just set up my own community interest company called DAIS, as in DAIS, a raised platform from where you can be better heard. And as part of DAIS, we have the license to deliver the Victim's Choice Quality Mark, which assesses the response to those impacted by crime and harm, and it's measured against a set of standards that really focus on the outcomes for the service user. on a personal note, from working in a sector that's quite depressing, really, most of the time, the delivery of the quality mark for me is a source of joy, because I get to go into services and find out all the innovative practice and challenge them to look at areas that they haven't considered before, and then I link them up with other providers to share learning, and so it's an absolute joy for me, and it's very Justice 2.0. So the ethos behind DAIS is that all forms of knowledge and experience should be of equal value when addressing issues within crime and harm systems. So to create really effective and sustainable change or new interventions or improvements, you really need impact from a range of perspectives. So that's the academia and policy specialists, but also the importance of frontline practitioners and service providers can't be underestimated. And obviously those with lived experience, that goes without saying, clinical perspectives and, even business and consultants, whatever is needed. And so when I was introduced to Justice 2.0, as you can see, it really aligned with the way I work already and the way I'm thinking about criminal and social justice. So Sarah asked me to come up with what I would like to see and in Justice 2.0. And so from 103 things, I've narrowed it down to 3 things. And so the first one has to be, for me, the inclusion of the victim and survivor perspective within this arena, and for a seat at the table for the victim sector as a whole, and for them to be a key player in driving change. So that has to be my first thing, because we've come a really long way, and the victim sector has done fantastic work, and the police and health and other organisations. And at the moment, we're seeing a greater recognition of the victim experience than ever before, including new legislation, new rights for victims, but still, weirdly, in many settings talking about crime and justice, there is no mention of the victim. And my role is still, after all these years, to say, what about the victim in this? And, what about the victim perspective? Because victims are often used to justify things. We're doing this because the public deserves justice and victims deserve justice, but without actually coming from a victim perspective. So that's my first one. My second one is also an opportunity that I can't pass up, and that is in my utopian Justice 2.0 sort of world, I would like a new system of commissioning for victim services, so that the victim sector actually has the capacity to be able to take up a seat at the table. So at the moment, services are contracted for 12 months, maybe less, or 2 years, or in best case scenarios, sort of 3 or 4. And retaining staff in those circumstances is really tough, as you don't know when you'll be funded again, and you can't promise them. And so staff move on because they need to pay their bills, and they go on to permanent contracts with local authorities or other organisations, and good luck to them, because they need the security. But it means that the third sector is training but not retaining staff. And one role within a service could have 3 different sources of funding, and everything has different time frames and different reporting criteria, and the applications are huge, and the admin burden of all of this is huge. And I could go on about this for the rest of the day and into the weekend, about the negative impact of the way that the commissioning service has developed over time, and that services are doing really well despite this, rather than because of this. And obviously, there's a lot more complexity to this than I can convey in a couple of minutes. We have reports, we have the evaluations, we have diagrams and statistics about this. This isn't a new thing. The evidence has been there for a really long time. what we need to do is flip that process, and we need to look at the needs of victims and survivors, which is also the needs of society to repair the harm done by crime and harm, and then look at the needs of the services to be effective to meet those victim needs, and then make it that the funding cycles don't jeopardize that, and that elections don't jeopardize that, and that nothing jeopardizes that that delivery. So having completely revolutionized service delivery, service commissioning, my final thing that I would like to see, and that I'm thinking about at the moment, is a standardized approach or a code of practice for engagement with those with lived experience. Because if all knowledge is of equal value, and we're going to work in this way, those with lived experience are the group that are usually doing this work for free. They're doing it in their own time, and the motivations are very personal, and they're very emotive motivations. And it's a really positive thing that everybody wants that lived experience voice now, and they recognise the importance of it. But possibly the way of going around that, I mean, William spoke earlier about he can't, you know, and I've heard from victims as well, that they come up against barriers around vetting and they can't be involved. And it's, you know, that issue around, we want you to be involved, but our systems don't allow it. And the impact on that on the individuals. So my proposed code would be based on 3 principles of necessity, reciprocity, and sincerity. And so the first point around necessity, is it necessary? Does the information exist elsewhere? If it does, use it. Are you sure that you're going to use the information? Is there a risk that you might engage with people and then cancel that because it's too difficult? And then really think about, like, what would the impact be? It's really, really negative to say to people, your voice is important, we really want to hear from you, and that, you know, then just disappear, or then say, oh, we can't now. So it's thinking about, is it necessary to begin with? And then the second principle around reciprocity, at the very minimum, participants should get a positive experience. They should get updates. They should find out how their information is going to be used. How is it going to be analysed? How is it going to affect change? Some of this has started to be covered really well with, you know, academic, ethical applications. You have to say how this is going to be done, but it should be, if people with lived experience are an equal partner, these sorts of principles should form the basis of your engagement. Where possible, people should be paid for their time, or they should receive something tangible, some training or some sort of opportunity. Their input should have value, so it should be a reciprocal relationship. And then finally, the last principle is sincerity, because engaging with people and taking their time and you know, raising their hopes, where actually you're just looking for some nice quotes to put on the end of a report that's already written, is insincere. And there's a lot of really good practice from services, from commissioners, of this being done really well. So there's people that we can learn from. So to sum up, I would like victims to be included, the victim sector to be in a position where it can sustain itself and can, you know, be have the capacity to be part of the solution, and for an agreed code of practice around including people with lived experience.
Thank you. I love it. Thank you so much, Becky, and such a privilege to have you with us today at the launch. And it's just really inspiring to hear all the stuff that you're doing. And yeah, it's about the doing, isn't it? It's about the action, and it's about your ambitions. And I think there's so much that resonated with me from your talk. we're doing a project at the moment around embracing lived experience in its purest form in a very genuine and ethical and authentic way. So your points really resonate. And what you were saying about getting paid, you know, when we asked people to complete a survey, and for those that completed it from all around the world, are people who have got lived experience of the criminal justice system. 65% of them said that they hadn't been paid for their work. And I kind of think, we really need to not only, like you say, have that kind of equal voice, but it's also about highlighting what is the value that we get from our community that have got lived experience. It's just we can't compete with it, and we shouldn't compete with it. It's about diversity, it's about working together, and I love this idea of equal voice. That's what the Alliance is about. It's not about we're here to help the people that are offending. It's about saying everyone is in it together, and people have got knowledge to give. You know, people coming out of prison have got knowledge on how to survive that and how to get through that, and we want everyone to feel that they've got something to contribute, because they are all equally valuable in very, very different ways, but collectively we have the answer. So thank you so much, Becky, for sharing that. And absolutely, tokenism is justice 1.0, and tick boxing culture is justice 1.0. So yeah, I absolutely hear you. Okay, we are now going to head over to Tamara, and again, I've got to know Tamara a lot more over the last kind of 6 months. We are partners in a project that we're doing around culture change for middle managers, and I'm sure Tamara will talk a little bit about that in her talk. But again, someone who's utterly inspirational to me, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say, because my battery is going to be way too refilled by the end of our launch. But over to you, Tamara, and thanks so much for being here. 1 minute, Tamara. I can't hear you, Tamara. 1 minute. No, cannot hear you. I'm gonna call on Justine. Justine, help us in the back. And whilst we do that, I'm just going to share some of these comments, just as Tamara sorts her sound out. So yeah, I think just throughout that talk, Becky, loads of people talked about the importance of having victims, of having a seat at the table, meaningful justice system, collective belonging. Thank you, Carrie Ann. Just lovely comments there. And we also got a comment by Dan. Victims' voices is as important as everyone's, and brings about meaningful change so that all voices are represented. And I think I can hear sound. Yes, we can hear you. So brilliant. Over to you, Tamara.
Well, thank you so much for the wonderful introduction, and sorry about the technical issues. I'm happy that the microphone is now working. So firstly, I just really want to thank all the speakers who I've been listening intently to. I just really believe that this event today, and hopefully all the ones in the future in regards to Justice 2.0, are going to be exactly this, community. Because I believe that we need to be coming together from different parts, from different perspectives, from different organizations, and from different countries. I'm currently in Vienna, Austria, to really understand what does it mean to be moving forward with Justice 2.0. So when you asked me to reflect on Justice 2.0 and what it means to me, I firstly was honored to be asked in the first place what I think about it and what I want to contribute. And secondly, I really thought about the concept of walls, actually. So walls, in both the literal and metaphorical sense, we have been building all the time. And obviously, walls inside prisons are something that we all are very well aware of. We construct these walls to protect, maybe sometimes we just pretend to protect. We build walls to delineate spaces, and we build walls to keep certain people outside and certain people inside. But when we look closer, walls can also be a testament to some kind of collaboration. And let me expand on this. So when I used to work for UNODC as a prison research advisor, I was able to go on mission to Nigeria and was able to speak to colleagues there. And I was allowed to speak to a couple of different colleagues working at an old community center. And their team had been asked to renovate this community center and support community integration through having the center as a hub for the community, for every different persons to come together. And that building obviously had many physical walls, but the real challenge was, how do we overcome the invisible barriers? How do they overcome these sort of boundaries of the community and of society? And also within the center, each department had its own way of working. So it was really difficult for the team to think about, how can we bring all of these groups, departments together? And I kind of saw a bridge between that work and what we're doing now. So initially, the team told me that these differences felt sort of insurmountable. So really, you cannot bring these walls down. We're just working really differently. But then the team told me that they decided to collaborate and to really get to know all the different departments, to really understand, what is the motivation? Why do they work differently? What are they trying to achieve? What is their mission and what is their vision behind of everything what they do? And then they brought together key players from each department to really think about, okay, maybe you cannot align in all of the different things that you're working on, but maybe you have one crucial shared value. And they were able to set aside the individual methods and then go beyond that and really think about the larger vision, the vision that we have right now of Justice 2.0. So my Nigerian colleagues were talking about the walls that they're building shouldn't be the ones that are separating them, but actually they're building a wall or building a bridge with all the bricks of the walls and create that pathway of shared ideas and collective effort. And so each of the different departments, team members could contribute with their own little stone or brick to that kind of vision and mission of what they are trying to build. And through that, they really were able to build a robust framework for this community center and feel united in the vision of supporting the community in their work in bringing the community from different perspectives together. And when the colleagues from Nigeria were talking to me about that, I was really thinking about how this is exactly what is missing in many ways in the justice systems across the world. We tend to have many, many advocates for many different groups around the table. And yet we struggle to really think about not only collaboration, but co-creation. How do we go beyond just accepting, yes, okay, there's going to be other opinions. Yes, okay, it's valid that you're there, but actually I'm going to focus on that. And how do we go to that sense of understanding that if we actually contribute to a shared solution, we could go much further and much more sustainably do that. And so since then, I've been really working with my organization, Richtungswechsel, which means change of direction in Austria, on how we can support not only the work that is going on inside prisons, how can we break down the walls in a way that the community understands what is going on? Because at the moment, what I see many, many times is that we come together in our little bubbles and we speak about vocational education, we speak about leadership, we speak about advocacy for victims, we speak about people and experts with, or we have groups of experts with experience of being incarcerated. And sometimes we even come together between these groups, like today, and discuss what we're trying to achieve and what our bigger vision is. But yet we still fail to think outside the box many, many times and understand that we need to bring a wider movement forward and we need to really find a way to address the wider community. So one of our key pillars in the work that we do at my organization is not only to work within the justice system and the broadest sense of the justice system, but also to address people that we never thought could be sort of unlikely allies of the work. So as part of our work, we are part of the BOLD community, which is a community of innovative, what they call bold minds, who are trying to advance humanity in innovative, inspirational methods. They have more than 3,000 bold minds all across the globe. And yet, I'm the only bold mind that is in this community that works inside or with prisons. And I think that is crazy. I personally think that we need to really integrate our work beyond the scope that we're currently working on. And I suggest that we come together and envision a way that we can not only inspire the leaders and the people who are already inside the system and on our side in one way or another, but also come and integrate the unlikely allies in our community, have the small conversations. Every single day, you can make a difference in the conversations that you're having, whether it's with your neighbors, whether it's with whoever else in your social lives, whether it's with your partners who are then going to work somewhere else. It could be anywhere where you can bring the Justice 2.0 into conversation. And I think we need to see ourselves as crucial in that. Many, many times I meet so many amazing people who are change makers and leaders and inspiring. And yet they still don't understand the power that they have. And I would like to give everyone who is here, whether as a speaker, who is watching, who's commenting, the understanding that you are making a difference as an individual every single day. And the more you speak about it, the more you share your vision, the more people are going to become those change makers that you all already are. And one of the ways that we are currently creating change makers together with Grow, Transform, Belong is through the launch of the Champions Community. The Champions Community is a prison middle management leadership program, which will start in autumn of this year in 3 different European countries, bringing together middle managers from different countries to go through the growth curriculum and understand how they can become not only effective leaders in their establishments, but effective inspirers across their communities. I meet so many prison staff who don't dare to speak about their roles and their work outside of prisons. And I understand where that is coming from, and then I understand that feeling. When I was a prison officer, I also sometimes didn't speak about my profession. But if we know that we're contributing to Justice 2.0, and we're contributing to a holistic view and vision of what we're trying to achieve together, then we should pride ourselves in that. And we should become the change makers and inspirational leaders that we want to be. And lastly, I would just like to share a quote by Martin Luther King. The true measure of our future progress is our willingness to embrace the possibilities of justice reform. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Tamara. You're such an inspiration. I think Stuart said that Tamara is an inspiration, fact. So yeah, it's really, really great to hear you talk. And I think, yeah, I think both of us really talk a lot about the kind of unusual allies, you know, like particularly within my kind of local community, and doing talks that are outside of criminal justice. And I think the more we get out and do that, you know, like you say, even in the most informal ways. You know, I had a chat with my doctor a couple of months back about my work, and it's just planting those seeds of hope and kind of challenging some of those assumptions. You know, there's so many assumptions around prisons, and I think like you say, that wall almost kind of keeps all the myths inside. And I think if we can create a little bit more, I think Stuart talked about it, almost a kind of like, definitely a kind of semi-permeable kind of wall where we can bring people in and we can bring people out, so that we can understand prisons a lot more. I think it's so important. So yeah, I love what you said. I love working with you. I'm excited about the Champions community. And when you were talking, there's a book called Rebel Ideas, which is again about how if we want to make changes in a system, we've got to create a significant amount of diversity. And there's something there about, in light of our diversity and all the streams that we kind of are creating, how can we integrate that? What does that end game look like when all the ocean comes together? How can we integrate our ideas and have that openness that we need in order to fully integrate into our strategies, the victim's perspective more maybe, or, within the lived experience kind of agenda, how we can integrate officers and professional lived experience more. So it's about how everything comes together and the glue that's important. Hello, look up, lovely Kerry. Kerry's here. Amazing thoughts and messaging, Tamara, from Kerry Ellis-Devitt. And we also have Attila here. So just to give a bit of a shout out to Attila. I worked with Attila on some stuff around, we developed a program around disengagement from violence, around radicalisation. And Attila is just so dedicated to how we can build that sense of belonging in the community with people who are in prison, and how we can use that as a way in which we can build connection and support rehabilitation. So Attila has worked on a lot of our projects. He's a massive supporter, and previously a Hungarian, well, he's always been Hungarian, but he's a governor, so previously a governor, and is a kind of change maker over in Hungary. So, we are much, much larger than maybe, like you said, we're much larger than maybe we think. We have lots and lots of people within the alliance across in the Middle East, in Hong Kong, in Romania. Yesterday I got back from Albania. We've got lots and lots of people that are really on board. And I think the minute you connect everything up, that's when magic starts happening, doesn't it? And that emergence is exactly what we need. So thank you very much, Tamara. Always. Okay. So our next guest is Iridian. I'm very excited. So we had the pleasure of listening to Iridian when myself and Cam went to Singapore last year at the ICPA conference. And as soon as we heard words from his mouth, we were sending him an email and saying, please, we would love you to be one of our brothers, we are just so lucky that Iridian agreed to that and has agreed to come and talk to us. Absolute inspiration. So I'm not going to leave you any longer. So over to Iridian, and go for it. Can't wait.
Yeah, good morning. She said, so privileged to hear me. She hasn't heard me yet. Not this morning. Good morning to you. Well, it's good morning in Canada. It's about 6:12 over here in the AM. And what a wonderful breakfast to wake up to with all these thoughtful voices. Very much appreciated, not to bypass anybody, but a couple of voices that really caught my eye this morning was William Morey, a fellow lived expertise human being. Sarah, of course, I appreciated her comments about pick a tribe. I did that. Just tell you a little bit about myself. Mr. Nelson Mandela is a pretty famous guy, and they've changed the UN statute on the treatment of prisoners and now call it the Nelson Mandela rules. Mr. Mandela spent 10,055 days in prison, various prisons, Robben Island being the most famous of them. I spent 10,399 consecutive days without respite in Canadian prisons. And so if Mr. Mandela had something to say, they haven't elected me as president over here yet, and I don't think that they're going to anytime soon. But I know that much time sitting in a cell, and as I say to people, I can't play the banjo and I can't carve. So I wrote books and I studied and I created programs to try and keep myself occupied, keep myself positive, to help others. That's where I found my jam. And I think that this is that exact same community. I think that grow, transform, belong. Oh my goodness. How do you put that fusion together? And then how do you do it internationally? It was interesting when I came out the door when I went into prison, there was no email. There's probably many of you who are thinking today, I wish there was still no email. But when I came out into the world, somebody handed me one of these. And I pretty quickly found out that I was no longer a citizen of Canada. I was actually a citizen of the world, because I can talk to people in Great Britain on Zoom and on platforms like this one. I can hire people in other countries and have them do the work over there. So you really become a citizen of the world. And that's what I like about Grow, Transform, Belong, is that the vision is an international vision, that we're all really, our tribe is the human tribe. And it doesn't matter if we at one time or another are representing victims, or whether we're representing justice-involved people, or whether we're representing police officers, correctional officers. We're just humans. That's it. And often I go to, when we talk about changing the system, I think the whole concept of changing the system has to begin with the fact that justice can no longer be a system. The justice system in Canada, very interesting, comes from our mother nation, Great Britain. And I often go to universities and talk to young people about what is a correctional system, what's the history of it. And I take them back to Speaker's Corner. I take them to Marble Arches in London, and I take them to a picture in the sidewalk of something called the Tyburn Tree. And I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. But the Tyburn Tree was, to my taste, was the beginning of the correctional system that Canada and Australia and New Zealand and all the other Commonwealth countries eventually inherited from England. It was, for those who may or may not know, it was 3 posts in the ground with beams hung across it. And it was a system because they could hang them 24 at a time. So now we're starting to move into a little bit of industrialization, right? But, due to the work of Mr. Dickens and some of your other famous English writers of the day, it got moved over to Newgate. And then it sort of got moved inside Newgate because he was so disgusted with what was happening and lobbied some of the folks. But he came over here to Canada because in 1834, we built a castle on the shores of Lake Ontario. It's called the Kingston Penitentiary. That used to be our capital here in Canada. It wasn't Ottawa always, it was Kingston. And the Kingston Penitentiary became the model penitentiary for Canadian prisons and houses of incarceration. And so I do that. I show a woodcut of Tyburn, and then I show the picture, kind of an aerial picture of Kingston. And I ask the kids in the universities, what's the difference? Like, what do you see? What really stands out here? And the difference is that it's missing people. The Kingston model of the penitentiary, which hasn't evolved in 191 years in Canada, it's missing people. So whenever we start to think about systems, we get rid of the people piece of it. And I think that Justice 2.0 in your country, in my country, internationally, has to bring people back into the equation. So here I am talking today and I'm blah, blah, blahing away, which is what I do. But when I go to the universities, the first thing I ask is questions so that I can stimulate conversation. And so it'll be nice when, today's a launch and it's a very well-prepared launch and everyone has done their job to try and communicate their thoughts accurately and to try and represent their organizations. But where this thing is really going to take off is if we can use technology to have real-time interactive conversations between those who have been affected or harmed by the actions of someone else, by those who have tried to redeem themselves for the harm that they have caused. Those conversations need to happen in real time, live. We'll get there. It's early days for this platform. But when we can bring people together, how do I envision that it eventually becomes is that someone creates harm to someone else And then you have a mediator that's in between. Not a correctional officer, a mediator, someone who builds a bridge between the person who was harmed and the person who did the harm. And then those two people get to have a conversation together in a way that's safe and dignified and forward thinking. And that's what the mediator is going to be able to do. I hope to be a part of that. I hope that Justice 2.0 gets that message out into the world. I've heard a lot of messages today, a lot of very thoughtful people. Over here in Canada, we're doing some pretty interesting things. I'm part of an organization right now that had its start in the United States. It was an organization that had its roots inside of the Kansas State Penitentiary with a prisoner and a warden and a chaplain who wanted to do something different back in 1962. It's called Seventh Step. And it had its roots in a time when 12-step organizations like AA and NA were very active. But Seventh Step is completely, it's 7 steps. It's completely about helping people who have been regurgitated by the system. I call it the wood chipper. They never have found their way out of the wood chipper. They just continue to go through again and again. So Seventh Step is working in the community with other organizations that are established, long established. We have the John Howard Society in Canada. I work for them sometimes. And one of the things that happened in Singapore is that I tip my hat to Canada, okay? Because no attaboys here for me. Canada did this. Let me just get the numbers right here in my head. So it would have been September of 2023, after spending almost 30 years incarcerated and knowing that I was going to be safe in the community and that I had a great structure. I said to my case manager inside prison, I said, we have to start somewhere. So, I had a pretty horrendous record of escape from prison. On my last escape, I murdered my bank robbing partner and shot my way across the country, and they caught me on an airplane going to Fiji. So I wasn't exactly a candidate for reintegration. But in September 2022, I said to my case manager, I said, listen, let's start somewhere. Why don't you just tie me up to a piano dolly, put a mask on me like Hannibal Lecter, and we'll roll out to McDonald's and see how it goes. We'll start to build trust. She laughed, but it was pretty close to that. They put me in the back of a van, handcuffed and shackled with 3 armed guards, and took me to the concrete basement of a halfway house. Yeah, for pizza. Halfway houses in Canada are pretty progressive things. They've got folks working in there that are more of a social worker mentality than a correctional officer mentality. So the one young man says, could we take off his handcuffs so that he could have a piece of pizza with all of us? The armed officers that were with us said, not a chance. 2 years later, I met Cam and Sarah in Singapore. 2 years later. And I was dancing in a gala ballroom with correctional officers, people in the sector. So what that tells me is that things can change when people start talking to people. So I'm hoping that this is a venue to do that. I'm really privileged to be with such an experienced group of people, but I bring my own experience to the table. I did more time in a cage than Mr. Nelson Mandela. So I don't apologize for being only lived experience. I think that many of us, including William, are lived experts. And the sooner that we can change that narrative, and the sooner that we are accepted for being people with thoughtful ideas to bring to the community, I think that's going to be better for all of us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Iridian. I could just listen to you all day, but so many emotions, really, just hearing you talk. And I just feel really privileged that you're here today to talk to us. And we are just really excited to see what we can learn from you and how we can mutually learn from each other, as well as the bigger community. And just, I guess, to turn to that community just before we introduce our next speaker, we've got a number of people that have just joined us. I think over the pond has woken up, so that's really lovely. So we've got some Joe Arvidson, who I'm pretty sure a lot of us know. So lovely to see that, Joe. So Joe is definitely a brother of Justice 2.0. He's not only advisor, but has also done some work with us. So he's over in America, and he's developing something called Tides, which is around trauma-informed assistance. And he's also the criminologist podcaster. So wonderful human being doing loads of great work, which is exactly what we're talking about today. Yeah, how we can do and take action on Justice 2.0 rather than just talk about it. We then got Arshad, lovely Arshad, who has always been a supporter of us, I think, from the beginning. He is loyal, and he is part of our diploma, our growth series, our kind of online conversations around different ways in which we can look at probation and how we can create a more kind of empathic system. And what really stood out for me with my interview with Arshad was that he said, we are the architects of our community. And I just love that, I love that I think we have architects, we have engineers, we have, my husband's an architect. So it resonates greatly that we can design, we've got the power to design a new system, to articulate that, to put that together and to share that. And I think collectively we certainly can do that. So lovely to have you here, Arshad. And then Andrew, who is someone that we met when we were in Singapore. Andrew is a really good friend of ours. And again, just wonderful to see your name pop up on the screen. And Alexander Rose, of course, again, someone who just works relentlessly hard. Things can change when people talk to people. 100% agree, he says. So thank you so much for your comments and your support, Alexander. So okay. So the next guest is who's been very patient for an hour and a half. Sherry is one of my favorite humans. I met Sherry some time ago, and always a real privilege to work with her. She is just incredibly wise, and I just kind of see her very much as my kind of mentor, and she's really supported me in making sense of a lot of stuff, that particularly when things got really difficult. So I'm going to hand you over to Sherry, and I'm really excited to hear what you have to say. So over to you.
Thanks so much, Sarah. It's been lovely hearing everyone speak, but I'm feeling like I'm bringing up the end of this and need to provide some sort of launch, exciting presentation. And I haven't quite had that second cup of coffee to provide that kind of enthusiasm, but I am delighted to be here. And I want to say that I'm here both individually and representing an organization. And that's really part of what I bring, I think, to Justice 2.0. Sarah asked us to prepare some things about sort of our why and what our passion is. And I'll say that I think actually my passion is about prevention. And we usually think about prevention as before crime, but there's prevention in a lot of different ways. And there's prevention of harm. And that is really what my passion is. And for most of my career, my why was to really reach out to young children and young adults whose voices had not been heard within the justice system, within their communities, and their needs had not been met. But after nearly 40 years of doing that within the system, I tapped out. And as Sarah said, you tap out or you lose hope perhaps, but I never tapped out of believing individually that with a group of people that change can happen. And so I've never tapped out of culture change, and I am delighted to now be a part of a collective that is committed to doing that. I'm also, though, committed to doing that through the organization that I work with. And I'm the executive director of the International Association for Correctional and Forensic Psychology. It's a mouthful. And so we really refer to it as IACFP, the voice of psychology and corrections. And we are better known for a journal that we publish through Sage Publishing called Criminal Justice and Behavior. We've been around for a very long time, and our purpose has really not changed. It's really to support correctional and forensic psychologists and other helping professionals. And we view those other helping professionals as those who are lived experts as well, who work with justice-involved individuals and to really advance evidence-based practice, and practitioner-informed policies and programs. I think that one of the things that has attracted us to Justice 2.0 and to being a part of it is that we really see that the goals of this, I don't even think it's an initiative, it's a calling, it's a movement, it's something that can substantively change everything. And I think that is a good thing. I worked for a very long time trying to change the system from within, the Justice 1.0 system from within. And it's a tough battle. I hope that within Justice 2.0, while it may be hard work, I don't want it to always be a tough battle. I want there to be people that are working together to experience wins from within the system and within community to make a difference in people's lives. IACFP really, I think, sees that part of the opportunity for us is that we've really identified some strategies that we want to focus on. And those strategies are in complete alignment with what Justice 2.0 plans to do. Our current strategies are to really invest a lot in continual professional development, and there's great opportunity for us to support that within Justice 2.0. We want to enhance our international mental health leadership network, and for the work that's being done, we think there's a real opportunity for that. We want to engage practitioners and student writers, including those with lived experience, in all that we do. And that engagement is what Justice 2.0 is. It's about listening and engaging with a lot of different voices, a lot of different commitments. And finally, to continually find ways to help the helper. I think that that kind of collaboration and partnership makes it safer for all of us within systems and within communities. And we really see that that is possible. There is hope for that. Our focus is going to be on mental health and well-being. That's where I will focus most of my effort. And it's really for three particular groups of people. Those who are justice involved, certainly. Secondly, community-centered, and that engages family. And thirdly, the helpers themselves. I think that oftentimes we focus, because there are so many really complex challenges, complex problems, complex treatment needs, that we focus on those who may be very sick. But we also need to focus on those who experience periodic challenges and look more broadly at mental health as a whole and well-being as a whole, because those moments of challenge can become so much more. And we think that there's an opportunity for us to look beyond that which is always complex to something that might start off very simply. One of the things that I saw initially in the material about Justice 2.0 was the opportunities to take on different roles. And I think we really, me individually and our organization, also want to be involved in those, all three of the roles that are identified as supporter, partner, champion. But I individually also want to be a learner. I think that as I participate with this group of people and with this collective, there's an opportunity to learn from each other that will make the whole better overall. We were asked to come up with the things that we hope will be an upgrade with Justice 2.0. And so here are my upgrades. I really have just three of them. The first is that challenges in mental health and well-being should not be a pathway to prison. And right now they are. And that's true throughout the world. Secondly, we need to have community-centered justice that integrates mental health and well-being. And finally, that mental health and well-being is a priority, not only for those who are justice involved, but those who work within the systems themselves. I'm really delighted to be a part of this effort. My work with Sarah and Cam the last 3 years in particular, I found that they have just an incredible amount of energy and enthusiasm and passion. Their humanity really draws all of us in to want to be better people. And the collective has so much experience and expertise that we can really build on what we know and become better for it. And I look forward to really creating that positive change. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Sherry. That was brilliant. Really, really great. And yeah, I just think it's like you say, I think it's that idea of it being a pipeline, mental health being a pipeline to prison, you know, like we talk a lot about the school to prison pipeline, and both are equally heartbreaking, right? Both are equally heartbreaking. And I kind of think that focus on prevention, but also diversion, I think is something that we really feel very strongly about. So thank you so much for your contributions and your support. And I think, again, just to pull on some of these kind of last comments before we have our final speaker, who's sitting next to me, bursting with energy. Tammy left us, but she said something which was, I thought, really poignant, that reminded me of something that Kevin Wright said at the ICPA last year. And he said, what we want to ensure is that when people come out of prison, they are better than when they came in. And that includes our staff. And I kind of thought, you know, like I've heard it a lot when it comes to, I guess, the people that are in our prisons, but in terms of our staff coming out of their careers better than when they started, that hit home for me as well, equally. But then Tammy wrote, you know, I've so enjoyed the speakers and going out brighter than when I joined. And I kind of think, do you know what? That's the 1%, right? That's the little bit of energy that we've given Tammy to go out and go to all her other meetings and hopefully just carry on that little bit of brightness and that light, you know. Like I always remember meeting a guy in prison in Norway, and he said, you are light workers, you know, and it can be a really dark place, prison. So it's about brightening it up, which is, we talk a lot about. So yeah, thank you so much, Tammy. And we're gutted you've left, but you are one of our advisors and definitely part of Justice 2.0. So thank you so much. Okay, last but not least, we have Cam here. So Cam, I've had the privilege of working with Cam for a few years now, and yeah, I just remain utterly inspired by him in everything that he kind of does. And yeah, so I'm just going to pass over to him without further ado. So over to you, Cam.
Thank you so much. Firstly, I just want to say thank you for, I guess, the great work that all of our speakers have been doing, and for contributing the areas that they are really passionate about upgrading the justice system. So when we started this project, in terms of our speakers, we were asked to talk about what Justice 2.0 means for us. But before I do that, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. So a bit like Iridian and Will, I've been involved in the justice system since I was about 6 years old. The police were in my life. I ended up in care. Ended up being kicked out of school, so I know a lot about the school to prisons pipeline, and you know, ending up on the streets from a very early age. I think for me, it's such a hard thing to, I guess, articulate in terms of the journey, but I guess for me, what Justice 2.0 really means for me is us to stop commoditizing our mistakes, our failures, because I see so many people that have been let down by the system from a very young age, becoming trapped in a system that was supposed to protect them in the first place. You know, I'm really lucky and I'm really privileged to have been on, I guess, both sides of the fence or the wall. In terms of the work that I do. So I've got more than 25 years experience of the justice system, but I also have over 7 years experience working with senior leaders, you know, in terms of culture change, working alongside Dr. Sarah Lewis. And I think for me, this kind of changed my perspective of the whole system and the people that work in it. I see a lot of passionate people who really want to make a difference. But some of the policies and some of, I guess, the situations that they have to deal with make it really, really difficult for them to make the impact that they want to in the work that they do. We see a lot of burnout. We see a lot of harm. And this brings me great sadness, because we see people that feel trapped within their positions, trapped within their roles, and don't know how to move forward, but they really, really do. People don't come into this kind of work for money. The prison officers on the ground, the people, there's easier work that people can do. People come into this because they want to make a difference. And I feel that there is so much policies that are just so outdated that are doing a lot of harm. For me, Justice 2.0, there's about 4 main areas that are really important to me. The first thing is the staff who work in the justice system. We have such a high turnover or churn in staffing numbers because people are being sold a dream. It's as simple as that. I see officers or people coming into the system with so much hope, passion, and energy, and within months, they're grey behind their eyes. They're worn down. They're a shell of the person that I saw a few months ago. And that is not because they have lost the passion. It's because they've realized that the current status of the justice system is not set up for anybody to win, for anybody to feel that they're making an impact. I guess in terms of the residents or the people that are in prison, I think the narrative around people in prison and the way that the public or the media push it onto the public is really harmful. We all know within our echo chambers that more than 80% of the people in prison have been through childhood trauma, sexual trauma, abuse, and they become, I guess, they have become what's the word I'm looking for? They have become their trauma a lot of the times. We say that hurt people. And it's something that I see a lot within the work that we do. We see people with a lot of unresolved trauma who aren't getting the support they need, being locked up because of staffing issues, and coming out worse than when they went in. I think the lack of support for people who are coming into our communities because of the stigma, because of the media, because of the narrative that is being painted, keeps people in the cycle of recidivism. It keeps them there. When people are desperate to be good fathers, to be good brothers, to be a person and have purpose, the current system keeps people there, and that's not fair. I'm lucky to have found, I guess, the support and the belief to disband the labels that are taken on over the years. Some of them self-inflicted, but a lot of them from school, from people around me: failure, drug addict, criminal, don't deserve nothing, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. People become their labels. So we need to create a system where people don't take on those labels, where people are understood, where people feel heard, and everybody has a chance to write the end into their own story. I think the final 2 points that I want to make is around victims. Our justice system doesn't service victims. I've spoken to a number of people who are really angry, who have been hurt by the actions of others. And although they're angry, although, they want their justice, what they don't want to see is more people getting hurt by the same people, because they haven't had the opportunity to grow, to become better people, to fit back into society, And this is the current state of our system. And it's not just in the UK, it's internationally. We've lost humanity. We've lost caring, the nature of people. such a sad place to be, because we're social animals, you know. We need belonging, and currently the only belonging that I see a lot of people are having are very negative. And that doesn't mean that, I guess, some of the things that we're seeing in our justice system are inexcusable. But the fact that we are failing so many people in the community from early on, and they are becoming, I guess, trapped in a system. Yeah. And because that's what it is, it's trapped. Once you get a criminal record, once you get that label, you can't get a job, you can't get a house, you can't get insurance for your car. So what do? People have to survive. We need to understand that if we do not give people opportunities to become better people, we're trapping them in the same place that we're arguing that we want to change. I guess my final point is I want to talk a bit more about society in general. For me, Justice 2.0 is about everybody, because whether it's directly or indirectly, the justice system affects us all. I don't know anybody who hasn't been affected by it. Nobody. I know people who work in probation or in approved premises or in prisons who have got family members who have been affected by the justice system. Yeah, directly, who have to carry that shame and that burden, yeah, of people judging them because of the actions of other people that they haven't done, while they're still out here trying to make a difference. The truth of the matter is, we all have the potential to make mistakes. We all do make mistakes. But if we don't give opportunities to people to learn and grow and be welcomed, you know, and supported, then what are we really doing? What are we really doing? I think that's my question to everybody. What exactly are we doing when we have children that are being kicked out of school, and we know what happens to kids that get kicked out of school? We know they end up on the streets. We know the streets ain't safe, and people get groomed, and that leads to crime, that leads to hurt, that leads to drugs. So the question is, what does Justice 2.1 mean to you? When you look at your children, when you look at their friends, when you look at your neighbors, what does it mean to you? When you see bad, are you going to say nothing? Are you just going to sit by and watch it happen? Or are you going to call it out? For me, I'm just really glad that I've been given this opportunity to be a part of something that is bigger than myself, something where, as a collective, we can really start to push that needle forward, to support each other in the work that we're doing. Because I guess, like Sarah and some of the other speakers said, it takes a toll on our mental health. It takes a toll on our light that we all have within us. And only by really coming together can we, I guess, keep that flame alive, inspire each other, and just know that in solidarity, we are really making a difference. So I guess my final closing remarks of the day are, join us. We can't do it alone. We don't want to do it alone. Together, we're really powerful. Together, we're really strong. And together, we can make a difference. Justice 2.0 doesn't belong to anyone. It belongs to everyone. It's our opportunity to do something for the greater good of societies all around the world, where we can create a system that's based on humanity, forgiving, and opportunities. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Cam. Thank you so much. I think that leaves us really beautifully on, doesn't it? In terms of, that's the big question, you know, what are we going to do, and what are you going to do? And I think for me, there's something, and I talked to a lot of the guys that we support and girls that we support in prison and say, what do you want to say? I think before we figure out what we're going to do, it's about what do you want to say? And I think there's lots of people who are going to be listening to this that are thinking, you know, have gone through adversity, have gone through trauma, have gone through maybe, you know, experiencing prison, probation, the criminal justice system. What do you want to say? And how do you want to say it? And I think a lot of the time with Justice 1.0, there's so much we could get out there and expose, right? There's so much harm that's in the system, and I hear, and we collectively as a team hear a lot of that harm, whether that's from the people in the prisons or whether that's staff or leaders. And I guess for me, we have to keep the ethos of this campaign attached to our Justice 1.0, and that we have to, when we're thinking about the harms that we hear and we see and we get angry about, it's about saying, how can we respond to those with compassion and with empathy and with understanding and with curiosity, so that we can start the reconciliation process. And I think it is that. I think there needs to be a kind of systems level kind of healing process. And if we continue to just throw shame into the pot, you know, every time we see horrific statistics, which are just horrific, they are, I think there's, you know, shaming isn't going to help this situation. There's so much shame in the system already, right? So how can we create an environment where people can talk about that? And I guess, you know, in our last kind of couple of minutes, just in terms of the things that we can do, we're going to have the Growth Alliance. If you want to be part of that, please have a look at our website, www.growtransformbelong.com, and think, you know, a supporter is just someone who's like, do you know what? I've listened to what everyone said and I absolutely agree with it. Every time I see something positive, Justice 2.0, maybe if I see Justice 1.0 practices, it's about stating that, but also saying, this is what I want to see. This is what this is what could be better, rather than that shaming. But compassionately speaking truth to power, I think, is really important. You know, we're not a threat, we are an ally. Yeah, we're on the side of justice, right? So I think there's something about that. If you want to be an influencer, if you want to be a champion of some kind, if you kind of think, I want to get out there and I want to talk to in my community groups, or go to a church and discuss my lived experience, whatever that may be, if you want to do something in a much more active way and you feel that kind of fire, then we are going to co-create what that kind of looks like. You know, the Growth Alliance is not designed yet. This is the launch and it starts today, and it's beginning of something today. But we want to create something that's going to serve everyone. You know, we talk about there's loads of different platforms. You know, do we want to create a separate login space? You know, what do we want to do? How do we want to do it so it's a really meaningful thing? And then if you're an organization that wants to do some stuff, you know, corporate organization that wants to give back, you know, donate to GTB and donate to the work that we do. But also maybe it's about talking, you know, us coming in and talking about culture change, talking about the lessons you can learn in some of the most challenging cultures, so that we can have a voice and that we can start to build relationships and belonging to different parts of the world. Because I think, you know, I talked about this kind of collective loneliness, but I think we're all really tired. You know, I think people are just incredibly tired. And so a bit like what Tamara was saying, what about organisations outside of the criminal justice space? You know, whether that is around philanthropy, whether that is around different, you know, corporate business, whatever that is, finding resources, finding support there, I think is a way in which we can mobilise communities. You know, we saw that in some of the darkest moments of our COVID pandemic. We saw communities mobilise, you know, clapping our nurses and our NHS on Thursdays outside the front door. Communities can mobilise when they have a shared vision. And our shared vision is we want to create an effective justice system that is based on compassion and courage and humanity. And we need people to help us do that, really. So we've got loads of kind of questions here, and lovely to see Kate Mattox here as well. And thank you for everyone, David Breakspear as well. Your work and your passion for school to prison pipeline is again an inspiration. Has anyone got anything final to say? We got kind of 7 minutes, 6 minutes even. So I don't think I was going to kind of throw in a question about if we, you know, what do we think we need to do? But I just wonder if there's any last minute reflections or any other comments in light of all of the perspectives that we saw along the way. Arshad says empathy and being compassionate. We can bring change together. Absolutely, absolutely. Anyone have anything to say? Any reflections from our marathon of a launch?
Yeah, I've got something to say. No surprise there. I just think that I just really love to see that we're all focusing on something different. The thing is, there's so much work that needs to be done. Yeah, there's so much work that needs to be done. And there is such a crossover to the work that we're doing. The current status is like a spaghetti junction. If you look at it, you just can't make sense of it. So if we can all bring our knowledge, our passions, and our expertise to areas where we know that, this is something that I know a lot about. That is what we call a whole systems approach. Yeah, if we can get the community involved, we can get corporates involved, everybody, because it's all of our problems. It affects us all. So for me, I just think that this is the beginning of something beautiful. We planted the seed and today we've watered it. So let's germinate this seed of hope, of transformation together, and really push this campaign. We are not doing another campaign. This is it. Yeah. For the next 10 years, it's Justice 2.0. Yeah. And we are going to support any organizations or any other individuals who are doing great work in the space, because everybody needs to get that little bit of, an energy boost. They need to know that they are seen. Yeah, I think there's so much good work that is going on and everybody just feels invisible. So please, if you're doing good work out there, hashtag Justice 2.0, you will be seen, you'll be part of our collective, and you'll be part of a common goal to upgrade the justice system internationally. And I'm going to leave it at there and let anybody else who wants to say something step up onto the stage.
Oh, we've got our team here. Hello. So they can maybe say something. Absolutely. So we've got Dan, who was a former prison officer, not defined by that, but Dan. We got Carrie Ann, who worked in probation for nearly 18 years. And we've got lovely Justine, who has coordinated the entire event, but also has got amazing experience. She's an incredible researcher. She's a wonderful, curious, beautiful, optimistic human. But do you want to, how have you found it? Why not? Let's spend the last couple of minutes. Just you guys have watched it all the way through in the background. So yeah, what did you think, folks?
Go on, Dan, you go first.
Yeah, I think it's been a really good event. Brilliant to have everyone here kind of giving their things. And again, that international perspective of these problems transcend the UK, they transcend all of our agencies and regions. That's why it's so important that we come together and, share our ideas and our passion, because there's going to be times where it gets difficult and we feel down and our energy is kind of drained. And this is how we come together and overcome that. Looking at some of the comments as well, there's been some brilliant engagement. And I think when you look at Lady Val's comment around training in regards to Norwegian systems where it's 2 years, and in countries like our own in the UK where it's gone down to about 6 weeks now, I think, if we talk about how do we get people to care about lived experience, how do we get people to engage, if we're not investing the time initially, how can we then expect them to understand the importance of lived experience, to understand the importance of culture and all these different, far more complex issues that we're facing, if their whole initial training is just the very, very basic? So I think, broadening that out will really bring everything together.
Nice, Dan.
Thanks, Dan. Justine?
My quick thing I'll add in is I think you're all amazing. Thank you so much for coming today. I was having a really interesting conversation yesterday about how can we all be involved. It's a collective approach. And I think sometimes we feel a little bit of pressure when we don't know what to do. And it can be as simple, as Sarah said earlier, as just dropping a hashtag 2.0 on work that you see that looks really good and supporting each other, commenting, going, that's great work, that's amazing, this is the impact. We've got to love and support each other. And the more we highlight good work within the system, I think as a society, people tend to jump on things that may be negative, and we need to all stand up and be like, this is great. Come on, let's support each other. You're all doing great work. Let's push it. So it doesn't have to be big and fancy. It can just be the little stuff that brings us all together and supports Justice 2.0.
Lovely. Last minute, Kaz. What are you going to say?
I just think it is wonderful that people are coming together to talk about things that I think we talk about in silo, don't we? And the ability to join up collective thinking is where the power comes from, isn't it? That's where we find traction in something that comes together, where we all have similar views. We might have different ideas about how we get there. And we might just need to be brave to say, let's have those difficult conversations and let's hash out the different ideas that we've got and let's put everything on the table. We've talked a lot more recently within our team about some of the topics that perhaps we all shy away from talking about, and it's there. That's the nitty gritty, isn't it? It's talking about the things that feel uncomfortable to talk about in order to find that route through, and doing it in what Cam said was holistically doing something that has power behind it. And I think there is power in individuals coming together and finding a vision and a focus that is aligned. I think that's where we want to get to. And it's just great to have everyone here, but also, like Justine said, sign up to the Growth Alliance. You know, you can do it in the smallest of ways by simply just aligning with Justice 2.0. You can be more active involved in that, but you can shout out to us. You can contact us through our website or our email at information@Grow Transform Belong. So yeah.
Thanks. Thanks, team. Wonderful team. Thank you all so much. And we're going to love you and leave you there, and just get in touch if you've got any questions. Let's have a conversation. But thank you for all the speakers. You are absolutely marvelous. It was a beautiful, beautiful session. So thanks so much. And yeah, I think we're going to leave you there. Bye-bye. See you all. Not